Ravens Wrap is sponsored by Bud Light, jctickets.net, Geico Insurance, Donaway Furniture, Ocean City Golf Club, RussellStreetReport.com, Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Holiday Inn Express, the original Green Turtle, hosted by the Blue Ox Bar and Grill.
Welcome back in. It's the original Green Turtles Ravens Wrap Show right here on Comcast Beach TV and Delmarva's Rock Radio 93.5 The Beach. Don't forget, if you can't make it out to the show, Wednesdays at 7 o'clock at the Blue Ox, you can listen on the radio Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. But hey, we'd love to have you down here. Doors open at 5 every Wednesday. The show begins at 7, and we give you tickets, which you can put in a bin, and we draw Ravens tickets throughout the year for you, along with some other great giveaways from our fine sponsors at Bud Light, the Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Geico, the Ocean City Golf Club, jctickets.net, the Holiday Inn Express at Northside in Ocean City. They're not only sponsors, but we give away great gift certificates and prizes as well. So we'd love to have you down here. Of course, we're brought to you by the original Green Turtle, the Blue Ox Bar and Grill, Donaway Furniture. You can visit them, 130th Street, Bayside in Ocean City, 410-250-5100. We also want to welcome our newest sponsor, Mid-Atlantic Toyota. Again, you can find them online at buyatoyota.com. We want to welcome them to the Ravens Wrap Show this year. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, Ravens Wrap at the Blue Ox. You can type that in the search box and then like us there. We're already off to a really good start. I think we already have 100, and it's been less than a week. Also, website coming soon, ravenswrap.com. Next week, Steve Bisciotti going to be our special guest on the show, so hope to see you down here. No reservations. First come, first serve. Doors open at 5. Again, the show begins at 7. Mike Bradley, Steve Slaza, Bruce Laird, and Craig Lynch joining us here on the Ravens Wrap program. And guys, let's talk about the defensive end of things, or we'll get into, I should say, to the defensive end of things in a second. We'll wrap up the offensive end of things as well. And this is one of the questions that we're going to get to from the audience. We got some good questions concerning Flacco and durability. I think you said, Bruce, off air, he's due to get hit. We're not talking about sacks now, but he's on average on pace to get about 45 sacks, which is, I think, about 12 to 14 more than last year. But he's due to get hit some 120 times this year if the pace continues. That's certainly not something that John Harbaugh or the Ravens can afford to have happen.
I think everybody understands how tough Joe is, not only physically but mentally. You know, he does it show. He reminds me a lot of the John Unitas mantra. In other words, he's not going to yell and scream. He's going to do everything quietly and in the huddle. But he is getting whacked around. And, I mean, these guys are like the freight trains. A lot of guys are coming in unblocked. Right now, the Raven offensive front is having trouble with that delayed fifth-man rusher. And, again, because we talked about this, very much a copycat league. Once it happens and it comes up the gut, what I'm talking about, four-man rush, one of the linebackers or safeties delays a little bit like a second and then comes in. Those guys are absolutely been unblocked, and Joe's taking it from the knees right here to the shoulder pads, and he's taking some vicious blows. As the league starts freaking out more and more about the head injuries and everything else, players are going to get lower and lower, and I just don't want to see Joe get a knee from a guy that's unblocked. I mean, that's just, it's almost criminal. I mean, it's bad enough getting beat, Craig, but when you're unblocked and you get that free shot, I mean, it's gonna wear him out.
Yeah, as most of you know, Steve, he exaggerates the fact of my dislike for Joe Flacco. I like Joe Flacco. What I like most about Joe Flacco is that he doesn't lose football games. The Buffalo Bills games, that's the rare occasion with Joe Flacco. I mean, first time in his career, 5 interceptions, I believe. So that doesn't typically happen. What you want from your quarterback, Trent Dilfer was the quarterback that won the Super Bowl. He got no credit for winning a Super Bowl, but what he did was not lose games. And that's typically what Joe Flacco is going to do for you, too. He's not going to light up the stats with yards and touchdowns, but he's won football games.
And I believe he did have 16 fourth quarter comeback wins coming into the Miami game, and he got another one with the Tucker field goal. And of course, the defense held. But some of the questions, and that's what, I don't know if this is more of a question or a comment, but they've said, of course, one of the audience members about the fact that Flacco hasn't missed a game in the last 5 years. His durability is often overlooked. Maybe not by this panel, but certainly, again, Steve, that points to having a strong running game to help in the pass, especially against an offensive line that is going through some troubles right now, and we'll have a new member most likely next week. We'll talk about that in a second.
And that's exactly why you've got to have a good offensive line, and you've got to have a good running game, because Flacco can't drop back 50 times a game. You see what happens when he does. But, I thought it was a great point that you brought up, Bruce, and obviously we're concerned with concussions, and rightly so, but, the more you penalize people for hitting high, well, what are they going to do? They're going to respond by going for the knees. And once you start going for the knees, you're probably going to see long-term the average lifespan of quarterbacks dropping 2 to 3 years, as they go along.
Even if it's a young season, although it's a young season still, there are 67 players out on IR, injured reserve, because of knee injuries already, and it's a young season.
Well, hopefully that won't be the case with Eugene Monroe added to the offensive line. The question from one of the audience members is, will Monroe play this week? We talked in the first segment about the fact that the Ravens erred on the side of caution. He got to the Ravens, I believe, Thursday of last week. Didn't know the playbook well enough, or at least they felt it was better to not play him. But now he's going to have a full week leading up to the game against Green Bay. Guys, and Bruce, I'll start with you because former player, will that be enough time for him to get the start against the Packers?
You betcha.
Did I even need to ask that?
You betcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't do that for nothing. He'll be in there. He'll be in the starting lineup. And again, it's personnel set, so he'll understand that. You can pick up that. Now, the calls are a different thing, but, there's going to be 10 or 12 different personnel sets. They're named. Simply, some teams name them by numbers, some teams name them by colors. You can just pick it out, like 2 tights, 2 wides, 1 back. In the Brian Billick day, it was blue. So if you can't figure out blue, so you know who's in the game, and that starts it. And then, of course, the play calling is all done right, left, and everything else. So the terminology is not that bad. It's the line calls that may give him a little bit of an issue.
All right, I'll take this next one quickly just for the purposes of time. Is Furstenberg making any progress? Is he getting closer to making the 53-man roster? It's tough for us to know because of the fact that he's on the practice squad and we're not privy to those practices. But I think one of the reasons why Ed Dixon, for instance, is still on the team, and he did have 2 catches last week, maybe he's getting his confidence back, is because Ed Dixon is a blocking tight end as well. When he's on the field, you don't know, even though he's not a good pass catcher, they still do throw to him. So defenses, Bruce, as you know, they cannot key on, it's just going to be a run, it's just going to be a pass. With Badgema, more so they can, and so that's the reason why they didn't cut. I got a lot of calls on the fan. Well, why did they cut Stokely? Why didn't they cut Dixon? Well, for that very reason, because Badgema's on the field, it's going to be a run play. You can't tip that off to the defense.
No, and we mentioned this. I think we mentioned this here before. The National Football League right now, offensively, all right, the offensive coordinators, 32 of them, are using 2 tights, 2 tight ends, 33% of their snaps. It's a very big weapon. And why is that a big weapon defensively? Let's say you have 2 tights and 2 wides. So you're probably just going to have 1 back. But when you have that, this is what defense has to think about. If they're laid out that way, where's the strength of the formation? Is it to a number or is it to the wide side of the field? That, again, is all the scouting. So you decide that. Then you take the tight ends and move them. They go to trips. So first of all, trips will change the strength of formation. Then they go back to regular. Well, what I'm getting at, they're making the defense change the call possibly 3 or 4 times within the 30 seconds. Why do they do that? Because they want us to make the mistake. And there's not one player on defense in this league that cannot play unless you know the strength of formation. I'm talking about everybody on that field. If you don't know the strength of formation, you cannot run a coverage or a front or anything. And that's why they do it.
That's a great point. I've got to think once Furstenberg they feel is ready, if Dixon does decline, if he doesn't build on what he did last week, at some point he'll probably be cut.
Mike, real quick, wasn't it funny that when John Harbaugh talked about it and someone said, is he lacking his confidence? His comment was, he's a third-year player. If he's got confidence issues, that's on him.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I was going to say, before the first game, Furstenberg was actually out there for an hour with the tight ends coach, and they're going through. So, I think the Ravens are doing everything they can to get him up to speed. But, both for receiver and for tight end, I think it's a major jump coming out of college and bumping up to the pros.
And don't forget, Kyle Juszczyk did play a couple of snaps, actually threw him a ball, which I think if Joe throws a little bit earlier, he actually makes that catch on that one. But, Steve, I'll start with you. We'll go down the line. We haven't talked about the defense at all in this win. First off, what a phenomenal running defense that we had after the debacle in Buffalo. And even though I said the defense still kept us in the game, gave us a chance of Buffalo to win, 11 rushes, 22 yards for Miami. They abandoned the run. The rush defense did a heck of a job in the Miami Heat, but also, too, in pass defense, or I should say getting after the passer, that is. Terrell Suggs, when it really counted to in the fourth quarter, Steve, 3 sacks, and Dumerville had a huge sack to push Miami back enough to force a longer field goal than what it might have been.
But you say this all the time, and once you make an offense one-dimensional, and that's what they did. They took the run away, pinned the ears back. Here we go. You want the sack? No, I'll take it this time. They were just passing it around. You knew once you had eliminated the run that, hey, these guys are getting tired awful quick.
And see, again, I don't want to take anything away from our front against Miami, but I've never seen a sack be completed within 2 seconds as Dumerville beat a 6'5", 330-pound tackle in 1,002, and with a bull rush and inside move. So, again, Miami's struggling. They're last in the league with sacks allowed. They're up to 24 now. But take the win, take the sacks, and move on. And Green Bay's going to have that issue as well. Green Bay's offensive line has not been up to par, but then again, you don't have Tannehill. You have Aaron Rodgers, who is so close to Peyton Manning, like Craig. It's going to be interesting to watch this game.
Yeah, and I'll repeat what you guys already said, because when the offense is going to run a pass, the defensive line is just licking their chops. They know that their will at that point in the game is stronger than Miami's offensive line, and they're going to get sacks. Offensive linemen, they would rather run block than pass block. And when they have to continue to pass block, it just wears them out, and that defensive line in the fourth quarter was licking their chops getting at the quarterback.
Well said. More of the Ravens Wrap Show to come on Comcast Beach TV and Delmarva's Rock Radio, 93.5 The Beach.
In April 1959, Art Wall won the Masters, edging out Carey Middlecoff and Arnold Palmer by finishing birdie, 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 par birdie. 1 month later, Ocean City Golf Club celebrated the opening of their first 18 holes. That course has been transformed now into one of the most scenic golf layouts on the East Coast. Come experience 36 of the most beautiful and challenging holes you'll find anywhere. Ocean City Golf Club in Ocean City, Maryland.
Come see us at Blue Off.
Welcome to the Comfort Inn Gold Coast. Conveniently located just 1 block from the beach and adjacent to shopping at the Gold Coast Mall and the movie theater. Newly renovated and open year-round with a marvelous bayfront view. Visit us on the web at comfortgoldcoast.com and see our hot deals and great golf packages, or simply call our direct reservation line to plan your stay.